Do you think that being in service can interfere with our own best interest if we go too far with it?
I think if we are obsessed with it in a fixed way, in a personal way, that it can be like any other practice that we are perhaps premature with, that we're pushing too hard, we're doing it with our mind instead of with our heart.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can hold a person back. Yes, service that's in natural flow can create changes in situations that could be viewed as harmful to others. For example, the person who leaves their family to go out and serve humanity.
Yes.
I think we have to be very careful with that. I feel that we can all evolve within the family and the society we're in, totally fulfilling our responsibilities that we've committed ourselves to.
Yes.
And we can serve within that framework. So I would not encourage people ever to leave their family and their responsibilities because they think they have some great mission.
I mean, how many times have you heard about adult children talking about their mothers who have been in one charity or another, and the children at home have left having to make their own dinners for themselves as little ones, you know?
Yeah, that might be viewed as a form of escapism, wouldn't you think?
With the mother, the mother going out, you mean?
I mean, there's a fine line there. I think people who serve, I think service begins at home, and I think the best way to assess someone's spiritual condition isn't by what they're doing for the world, but what they're doing for their loved ones. And then after that, if they want to serve the world, I think that's very good. Now,
yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to paint this as black and white. I know there are certainly situations where families have suffered because someone was a savior and went out and saved millions of people. Again, Gandhi's a good example of that. I mean, his family sort of went along for the ride, and I guess it was good for everyone, but it wasn't easy for his family. So there are obviously going to be those cases where someone has a calling, and we all have to follow our heart and follow our calling, but we have to balance that with whatever commitments we've made in life.
We don't have a lot of time left, Yogani, but what's coming up next? I know we've got the 8 Limbs of Yoga, which is our final interview, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and the ninth book of the Enlightenment series. These are all little books, we should point out. They're not big, thick volumes, and people shouldn't feel intimidated. Each book that we've discussed in these interviews is about 100 pages, and they can be attained at the website, which is aypsite.org, aypsite.org. And the last one on the 8 Limbs of Yoga really ties everything together, discussing all the practices and building, the structure and pacing of a self-directed spiritual practice.
Okay. So we'll just finish with one more question about this path to enlightenment. What role does forgiveness have on our enlightenment path?
Receiving it or giving it, or both?
Both.
I think it's part of the divine flow that comes out of us, much as we've been talking about service. I'm certainly on the giving end. Forgiveness is part of the divine flow that comes out of it. And receiving it gets back to the making amends and taking responsibility for our actions with those who may have been affected. So forgiveness is very important. Forgiveness is surrender, and surrender is really at the heart of the whole Bhakti karma yoga process. And I always put the word active in front of it because we don't want to surrender to be interpreted to mean sitting down and doing nothing.
1 second.
Surrender is something we do. It's not something we don't do.
Yes, yes. What do you do personally to invoke forgiveness or immediate surrender? Can you just go into it automatically? Does it just happen for you?
Well, I try to be honest in all of my dealings with people in every way. and try and do it in a way that's going to be helpful to other people. But it's not intellectual for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have an intention, I have a desire, but I honestly can't tell you where that comes from. It's just something that, and I haven't always been that way. It's important to point that out. I've been a very selfish person in the past. I've done what I consider to be some terrible things in the past. But as silence has grown in me, there's just been a natural flow toward doing those things that I just mentioned.
Yes.
And you find forgiveness when you're open.
And I think forgiveness for yourself is probably one of the most important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, forgiving yourself is the first forgiving that has to happen. Because if you can't forgive yourself, there's nobody else that can. So it all happens within. Yes, absolutely. And that's just part of the whole dynamic of inner silence coming up and the whole ecstatic transformation and the flow. I use that word flow a lot. It's kind of an oxymoron to talk about stillness flowing, but it does. And that's the paradox of spiritual development.
Yogani, that's all we have time for today. It's been lovely and enlightening, of course, as always with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ann. It's been a fun one. I enjoyed it.
Yes, me too. So aypsite.org for more information and to get copies of Yogani's books. And we'll be back next month with the 8 Limbs of Yoga. Thank you, Yogani.
Yep. Sounds very good. Thank you, and the guru is in you.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.